Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Career Retrospectives, our second to last one of the year, right here on the Super Review Show Network. I'm joined by my two incredible friends, Kyle and Mike. What's going on, guys?
Hey guys.
So glad to
Hey, we're
so glad to
back.
have you guys back once again. And yeah, this, as I mentioned from the top, this is our second to last show of the year. And as the title of this podcast suggests, we're talking about our top five worst albums of 2023 that we listened to on our own or however we listen to them. We're talking about them tonight. So, yeah, who would like to go first? I
Uh,
think I think Mike.
Okay. You want me to go first or Mike, you want to go?
yeah, Kyle. Do it, Kyle. You
Kyle,
got
go ahead.
it.
You got it.
All right. All right. Well, coming in at, well, I'll start real quick. This year, maybe I'm the only one that thinks this way. Not great.
I
Not
agree.
great all around. A lot of bands I had high hopes for really let me down or just came out with mediocre albums. Um, overall, not great. But there was a bunch that were just flat out bad. So at number five, we have U2 Songs of Surrender. This was a train wreck almost from beginning to end, with probably about only 4 to 5 passably okay tracks, the rest being just a crazy amount of boring, monotonous acoustic renditions, marketed completely incorrectly, in my opinion. If they marketed it that way, I might be a little bit softer on it. But instead, they're like, oh, we're doing this long project. It's going to be all reimaginings of our songs. Instead of taking that the cool way and making it different genres, they just did acoustic and piano driven the whole way. Didn't work for me. Overly bloated, overrated band to begin with. Terrible release. That'll bring me to my number four. Bit of a controversial one here, especially for Mike. Queens of the Stone Age in Times New Roman. To me, this album is the epitome of style over substance, completely like atmospheric, not so much atmospheric, but it has like this style and tone throughout. I feel like a lot of the songs that could have been decent tracks get lost in this, like, oh, we have to stay to this kind of almost like creepy in a way style, but not like, what I mean, not like aesthetically creepy, but it has like these like kind of like seethy vibes to it, and it just doesn't work for me. Never been a big fan of his vocals to begin with. Never been a big fan of the band, but this one
And
just
it's actually kind of interesting that you say this because I actually was looking through some lists as we prepared for this top five worst albums of the year, and it actually did not fare well even on a lot of the other review
really.
sites for. Yeah, I was actually surprised. Yeah, I was looking at the top worst albums list for like metal and rock, and it actually fared pretty bad on that scale. So it didn't make me change my rating, but in a way I did. I on the greater scale of rating their music, I didn't have it as high up as even some of the albums that I was not a huge fan of in their previous work. So I can't fault you for feeling that way towards, especially if you're coming from a non-fan kind of direction. It definitely is a weak effort in that realm of music.
For sure. And but you know what? I will give it props on album cover in a time where album covers are slowly just turning into uncreative, just blocks of text or, you know, a picture of the band and nothing more. I like a good creative album cover, and this one looks cool. I'll give it that. Uh, but yeah, that one is a letdown. Someone that this is really my first time, I think, other than maybe one other album that Mike had me listen to, experiencing a full album from Queens of the Stone Age was let down. And that'll bring me into number three and talk about year of the re-recordings and remix albums and all that. I think we had U2 Songs of Surrender. You had the Def Leppard one. You had Taylor Swift doing her re-recordings. You had a couple other ones as well in there. Uh, Paramore, not so much a re-recording, but a remix album of their latest album, This Is Why. It's kind of like the Reply album, Reply, This Is Why. Awful. Terrible album cover. There it is, JT, right in the middle there. Horrendous cover, first of all. So that just set the tone for me going into this. I was not a huge fan of This Is Why to begin with. It had a few select songs here and there that I thought were pretty solid. We went over this in the beginning of the year when it first came out. Definitely my least favorite release of theirs until this. A lot of these, some of these don't even feel like remixes, more as it feels like other artists just straight up covering badly some of the tracks. There's maybe two on here that I thought were passable, but man, this just felt uninspired, like a total cash grab at look at our newfound relevance, throw something out there now. We'll have other people just do whatever they want and throw some really off-putting album cover on it and with like one demo. And the demo is one of the best things on the record. So that's that. It's a remix album. I'm not going to go too in depth on it. Then we get to off genre, probably the only different genre on my list here. Lil Pump's Lil Pump 2. I think it's no surprise to anyone that mumble rap and all that is not an album driven genre. You don't really go to this for albums, and this really solidified that for me. Lil Pump is an artist who I've actually enjoyed quite a few of his tracks. The one with Kanye was good. He's had some other ones here and there, and even this one has a couple actually pretty good songs on it. But then you get to songs like I think it's called Pump Rock. Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Apparently, there's a deluxe edition of this. I didn't even bother to check out either. But yeah, I mean, we're talking like 20 songs, mumble rap, awful. Fit 20 songs into 48 minutes. So for this one, yes, Pump Rock X Heavy Metal was the track that got me to listen to this. And it was one of the worst things I've heard all year, only rivaled by, oh my God, what was his name? I can't remember. The guy that did the Chop Suey cover. I can't remember.
Not even sure.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Machine Gun Kelly, didn't he do?
No. He did Aerials. He did a cover of Aerials.
That was one of the worst abominations that my ears have unfortunately had. Them grace, grace my
Lil
ears.
Uzi Vert. Lil Uzi Vert did the Chop Suey cover. That's probably the worst of the year, right up there with this one, song wise. The difference is Lil Pump's album didn't really have any redeeming qualities outside of one song, maybe two. So yeah, I mean, no surprise here really that this is probably going to make a ton of people's top worst, I would imagine. And that'll bring me to my number one. By far, huge landslide, one of the worst albums I've ever heard in my life, especially one of the worst of the past probably 5 to 10 years. Roger Waters' re-recording of Dark Side of the Moon. This is a travesty. This is a train wreck. This is disrespectful. Whether or not you like Pink Floyd or not, this just straight up shits on the legacy that this album had, all because this guy had to put spoken word ramblings over Dark Side of the Moon instrumentals that are just watered down. It's rambling. It's not good. The album cover is pretty cool. But other than that, this had not one redeeming quality. This was a straight like 1 out of 10 for me, this record. It was painful to listen to. And even on songs like Money, the heart is gone. And then there's just like a random him growl talking in the middle of it. It's so bad. I don't know what he was thinking on this. I've never been a fan of his solo stuff to begin with. But wow, hearing this was astounding. How you could do this to your own legacy and listen back to this and think, yeah, this sounds good. Beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. So in a year of mediocre releases, I would say these are the 5 worst. I mean, off the top of my head, some dishonorable mentions. That first Ed Sheeran album of the year. The second one I thought was a little bit better. Actually had some standout tracks on it. But that other one we talked about, that one not great. And the oh God, my computer just whacked out. Other dishonorable mention for me, the new 30 Seconds to Mars album. Continuing that downward trend of just sounding like Imagine Dragons, but now putting some Post Malone influence in there too. I don't know why they can't just sound like themselves anymore, but two dishonorable mentions right there. Third, Ben Sevenfold. That album too. Didn't quite crack the top 5 worst, but yep, year of mediocre releases with some absolute garbage.
Absolutely. You heard it here first. But I know Mike has a lot to say as well. Mike, why don't you go next, and I'll wrap us up after that.
Sure. I could easily go and select music I hate. Or music I have never heard and just hate by my natural, stance on music and where I lie. And that would be too easy to find a list of 5 albums that are just trash. You know, I got to find an album that I have history with, at least an artist I have history with, and like for example with Kyle, like he was talking about, I think a little pump for this and that, and uh, you know, how many albums do you love of Little Pump? You know what I mean? Maybe some tracks and stuff like that, but full albums, history, growing up with Little Pump. No, I don't think anyone's ever grown up with him.
Give it a couple years.
But yeah, right. But I mean, there has to be some nostalgia that gets dashed, in my opinion, to make a list even more concrete for that. So, starting with my number 5 of my worst albums of the year, I'm definitely going to put that Blink 182 album on there at number 5. You know, sorry, Kyle. I gave it a 5 out of 10, but after looking back on it, I kind of felt like I, could have even gone lower. But it's just one of those nostalgia kind of, just the grab bag of like songs that have the same kind of reused sounds and ideas in their previous work. It's just poorly pulled off, poorly materialized. You start off with some life, and it just all kind of leans on the drumming and the overall lyrics that really tug at your nostalgia and get you all excited about heartbreak and being a teen, even though these guys are not teens and they sound like a bunch of guys who are out of touch with their like adult selves. They didn't progress, they didn't change direction, they just kind of did the same thing over again, where you can even hear another song in a song that they've already done. You can just literally, it almost sounds like a parody of their previous self. So yeah, just for me, that was just one of those albums that I was just like, wow, this is where we're at. It's 2023, and we haven't come far from the from that kind of place. So yeah, so it's just kind of coming down my list. And then coming into that U2 album, I agree completely with Kyle. I debated about putting a rehash of old material on a list of worst albums of the year. Considering you want to rate out songs that have been created in today's world. But a lot of these songs were created in yesterday's world, and they're being brought back into today's world with really no change whatsoever, besides almost dumbing them down or just taking everything that was interesting and removing it and trying to kind of sound like a coffee shop indie version. And it just, to take that away from an original song is just, it really does them no benefit. And it just felt really lifeless. And I decided to keep it on here because I also wanted to stick to albums that we reviewed, even though I'm sure people want to know what my favorite albums are. Well, probably don't, but if you are listening, you're curious. I am a kind of person who listens to albums from way back in the day, and not even today's albums. I don't listen to today's albums until 3 years after today. So unfortunately, that's just always how I've been. And if I do stumble, I am. It sucks. Like, I do stumble upon a more current album and go, wow, it's a 2023 like album that blows my mind. Cool. Like, but it's so rare that I tend to I'm forced to listen to these albums.
Mike, I also struggled with whether or not to put re-recorded and reimagined things on this list. But I
Yeah.
feel like in 2023, the amount of them that came out was
Mm.
insane.
Yeah, sure. And that speaks for a greater the movement of lack of creativity. People are really being buried beneath the whole way the world is right now, and they're just unable to find, I think, a lot of just something that's just giving them
Yeah,
can't
and
think
one
of the
more
word.
thing on this album, real quick, is who was asking for this?
Yeah,
I don't think I know
nobody.
any U2 fans that even wanted this.
I didn't.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It's
all
like,
that made me, when I was listening to this album, all it made me want to do is throw on the actual original version.
Exactly.
yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and then we'll just kind of transition into my third worst album, and that would be 72 Seasons by Metallica. I mean, this was an absolute just sloppy lack of all the original elements. It's the same old thing that they've been doing, but more formulaic, more predictable, just kind of it just really is concrete in its desire to do the same thing they've done uh at the same pace rather than take a jump into a more kind of risky area, maybe even try to blend the old and the new. They never really were able to pull that off these days. Besides obviously having a guitar tone and a solo here and there, they've never been able to produce an album that is able to blend those features together. The choruses are just predictable. The direction of the song is long when it doesn't need to be long. It just lacks a tight performance. It really feels like an old group of guys who are doing a comfortable thing. And
Yep.
that really just continued to just beat that drum throughout this album. And it really made you want to listen to the old stuff. When a new album makes you want to listen to old stuff, it's failed at its job because it really does make you want to hear some of the original elements like the acoustic guitar,
Yep.
the medieval kind of qualities. I want to hear those again. I don't care if they're not today's Metallica. They need to be blended, and they wouldn't blend. All they wanted to do was just give you this new Metallica flair, which just, nobody really wants that. They just accept it because here we are. It's 2023, and they're alive.
I
We're
would
we're,
like
we're
to
grateful.
argue, though, on this
Hmm.
album, if you cut some of these songs down by a couple minutes,
Yeah,
there's some solid stuff on here. To
Yeah.
me, the problem
you
is
know,
that it's overly bloated to the point of even the riffs in the songs get repetitive and old. About halfway through,
right?
you're like, all right, change it up. You don't have to keep this, the verse ended. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to keep this riff going for another
Right,
however many measures to the chorus.
right. Yeah, and exactly. And like, honestly, you could take this new album and you could add some elements from their previous self, like the harmonized guitars. Harmonized guitars were so lacking on this album. You could take this
Mm-hmm.
new album, you could add some tighter drumming, faster drumming, more
Oh,
tempo
okay, Mike,
changes.
it's Lars. Come on.
I know. I'm telling you, I really do. I call out to the great producers and musicians out there who want to remix this album and add some real tight, thrashy Metallica elements and blend them in with current Metallica as well as it really could improve it. I never really loved any of the vocals on this. The chorus and predictability. Yeah. So yeah, that was just a shock to me. So I think I gave it a 5 out of 10. Like I said, I could probably even dip down again on that. Yeah. So then we come on to what my second choice is Midnight's Edition, 3 a.m. at Taylor Swift's Midnights. I
That's
did
from
this
last
to feel
year. That's from
right,
last
but
year. Boo.
tech technically the 3 a.m. edition was released in
No,
2023.
only the Midnights Till Dawn edition was.
Yes, till dawn. That's what I mean. This is just, I'm sorry, folks. This is just an excuse for me to add this album into this list and further in a petty nature, not a Tom Petty nature, but a Mike Petty nature. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to re-emphasize how terrible this album is and how very little it has in a musical nature. Hey,
Did you?
quiet over there,
Was
Kyle.
this on your? Was this on your list last year too?
It was actually.
It was his
So
number one, I think.
I'll be thankful if she releases a new edition in 2024 of the same album because
I
I
hope
can
so.
continue to put this on the list. I mean, it really is just a lifeless, just shell of an album. I'm sorry, folks, but I had to be that one. I'll send all your hate mail to
Mike's got the
Mike.
Swifties in the comments now getting all mad.
The Swifties they're coming for me. So hey, you know what? I'm used to being hated, and it's become a comforting place.
They're
So
gonna
yeah,
track you down
there's
and
that.
attack you.
That's it. Hey, it's well deserved for my boldness and my
Your boldness.
hater qualities here. But and then we finish out the list with the number one of one of the most shocking, disappointing, just conglomeration of strange change ups and rough vocal performance. We have Avenged Sevenfold's "Life Is But a Dream." This disaster is proof that you're either interested in making music that your fans like and that you like, and in that kind of combination are able to find a compromise where you can be an artistic artist and put out music that is reminiscent of your former self, but also evolving into your future self,
Yep.
and that you can kind of find a happy medium. Or
Mhm.
you're the other type of artist that's just like, screw everyone, I'm going to do what I want, and I really don't care about what they think. And I think, and that is definitely what this album was. Even you can see in the tours that they're putting on, they're touring with very strange artists that no band has ever toured with. And sure, yeah, I'm sure they're patting themselves on the back. Well, look at me, I'm I'm with this artist, and I'm putting out this synth kind of like experimental kind of nonsense, but it really failed in a lot of ways that an album could use all of its experimental elements to the greater community that it was trying to please. Blending them, it failed to blend them. And beneath the surface of that kind of like, oh, we're so experimental, you really just have kind of just a lack of identity. So, yeah, for me, it was such a shock. I have such a history with this band that I needed a history in order for it to make it number one. Sure, I could find a terrible mumble rapper or someone and just
Mhm.
say, hey, it's a 0.5 out of 10 or something, but that would be too easy. I need to find someone who is,
See, I agree with that. For me, I tried not to take history into account on here, but otherwise I
yeah,
would agree. This was probably the biggest letdown I had of the
yeah,
year. Going so many years. How many years has it been since their last one before this? And this is
good
what they
question.
came back with. Even the stage wasn't great, if we're going to be honest about it.
Yeah, I
Like
think
that
we've
album
lost
had a few good
JT.
songs. Yeah, we may have lost JT, so we'll just continue here. But I mean, this album also had my third least favorite song of the year. "We Love You" is
Yeah.
a horrendous excuse for a song
Oh yeah.
that just
Yeah.
feels like four different things mashed together.
Right. Right. Exactly. And it's just, I really honestly, if I never listened to it again, I
I
wouldn't feel
probably won't
anything.
ever listen to it again.
Yeah. True. So, yeah. All right, JT, you're up, man.
All righty, I'm back. Sorry, it took me a second there to lose myself. All right. So it's funny. This year was Kyle said it from the very top of the show. This is a very dry year for releases. And I mean, we talked about the U2 album, we talked about Metallica album, a lot of like very questionable releases. But the ones that I have on my list are just ones that I would no not ones that I would not only like not listen to ever again, but just forget about more than I thought. Like listen to them once and then forget about them, throw them in your CD bin at Walmart, and that's it, kind of thing. I would not go back to them whatsoever at all. So my number five, this might surprise you guys, but Def Leppard's Drastic Symphonies.
That was toward the bottom for me too.
Exactly. I'm like, it was like, why? I mean, it kind of almost echoed the U2 songs of Surrender one. It's in a similar vein because like we didn't really ask for this, and they went with this. I think you said this too. We went with the safe route of like, oh, we're gonna have what did they say? What did you say? Back in they went like with like the slower songs like Hysteria or When Levitate Collide. They went with like those types of songs instead of like
Mhm.
imagining like Pour Some Sugar on Me or Animal and stuff like
Oh,
that.
they did pour some sugar on me though. Remember they did the horrendous
That's
slow
right.
acoustic ballad version of Pour Some
Oh,
Sugar on
yeah,
Me.
that was bad.
That
That
was
was
bad.
bad.
I actually forgot about that.
Horrendous.
That tells you how much I've listened to it since then because I just refuse to like care about that. So, and their 2020, and their 2022 release was not that good either. So, they're kind of on a. I mean, they're still going to tour till they drop. Don't get me wrong, but it's like when you put out new content or at least reimagined content, you want to like have it at least good, and this was just
Yeah.
not good to me.
The DLC we didn't want.
Exactly. My fourth one it was actually one that we touched on recently, but the Millennium album. I
Hmm.
as much as I enjoyed it was Millennium. I don't know how to spell it, whatever. Millennium, Millennium. I'm gonna
Did you just have a stroke
There
there
you
or
go.
something? And then
I know. Exactly. No, this one just I don't. No offense, Kyle. No, absolutely no offense. I just EDM is not my thing. I prefer real instruments. That's
Oh,
just
me
my
neither.
exactly. So, but when I go back to this ever again, no. The more I remember listening to it, the several times over, I never really like, I never really like enjoyed the music to begin with, and like the bass drops and all this stuff too. So I wouldn't go back to it, and I know it was on your list, but and it's not my cup of tea. So I would not go back to that. So Millennium came out this year. And so this is my number three. Actually, we touched on you. I think you both touched on this, but Paramore's "This Is Why."
Hmm.
Paramore's "This Is Why." I I had never really listened to a full Paramore album at all ever, and this made me like it made me like not want to dive into their career more. And I understand they have other songs and stuff like that too. I mean, Haley Williams is Haley Williams, and and all that stuff. But I'm like, I just don't. I don't know if I would go back to them as a band after listening because I knew who they were. I just never like listened to them whatsoever at the time.
Well, I wouldn't judge them on this one.
Okay, all right,
In
I
all
appreciate
fairness,
it.
this sounds nothing like any of their other music does.
Okay, good. That's
They're
good to
not,
know.
I will say they're not the best band in the world, but their
No.
other stuff is better than this is.
Okay, well that gives me some hope to go back and try some other stuff. But this is why I was like, actually, it's funny. I made a video on our YouTube channel saying this is the Paramore. This is why Paramore's. This is why was a strange album. Puns, whatever. But it just was a strange album, and it was kind of weird. I barely remember any. I forgot I listened to it actually because when first, I really did. I forgot it came out this year. I was like, what? This came out this year? What? No way. And then I went back and listened to it again, just like to try and refresh my memory. I'm like, oh well, this came out this year, so it's been a dry year for us, truthfully. My number two might surprise some of you guys out there listening to us, but Avenged Sevenfold's "Life Is But a Dream." Avenged Sevenfold. If I can type it for my life,
Avenges Evanfold? Evanfold?
Sorry. This Mike, I will mute you. Um, I can type and I'm not illiterate, damn it. No, but like just I remember when we first did when I first listened to this album, I knew Avenged Sevenfold. I had never listened to an Avenged Sevenfold album until now. And I'm well aware I'm sure there are other albums are great. I remember Hail to the King for whatever reason in a Walmart bin. I gave that a shot at one point or another, but that was years ago. Now this one came out, I was like, all right, I know the band. Hopefully I like what I hear. The only one this actually this is I feel like a cop out. The only redeeming quality for me was the title track because it's just a piano instrumental, and I added it to a coffee house playlist. That shows you how good the music was of this record. Like the fact that the title track was a wordless, no dialogue, no verses, no nothing, just a piano instrumental. That shows you like the creativity that this band is putting out now. I mean, I get that I'm all for bands trying new things and trying new directions, but this was just like the weirdest like guitar riffs and choruses and so many
Yeah, I
questions.
agree. That title track was a shock at how good it was
Yep.
composed, and that was their strength over rock and metal. And like if I took a bunch of LSD and I ended up in an RV bathroom in Toledo, Ohio, like this might be a good album for me. But I like
See, but in a
Yeah.
way that doesn't surprise me though, because when you really break it down to what metal is and what the earlier releases are, it doesn't surprise me that they were able to craft a well done classical piano piece. That really doesn't surprise me. What surprised me on this one mostly was that they threw that away for just about every other song in favor of, you guys like Primus? Here you go. You like this experimental band? You like having a metal riff here go into a random acoustic thing with horrendously sung vocals? Here you go.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it was just like so like I don't know. It was just so questionable to me. It was just not like I mean I'm aware of who the band is. I'm aware of who they are and what and their work prior to this. It's just like you put out this and I'm like and the very fact that I was able to put the title track on a coffee house playlist from an Avenged Sevenfold record, it's just a piano instrumental. Cool, but really,
For real.
it's very questionable. Very questionable. I'll have to share that play with you guys too. Anyways, but my number one of 2023 is the worst album of the year. And I have no honorable mentions. I just want to get that through. This one, it was a shocker. But Ed Sheeran Subtract.
Mm.
That one was just not a disaster, but it's more of like a huge letdown, in my opinion. Like this, I remember when I watch our segments on YouTube. I watch to see what we can do better and whatnot as well. But I remember Mike being like, "Yeah, Kyle, this is your idea," and it's like, "Yeah, it's stupid, whatever." But like, it's just it. I get that he wanted to close out the mathematics part of his catalog. I totally get that. But like the very fact that it's just like quiet, and plus when I saw him live too, because this came out before I saw him live in June of this year. He played a couple of these songs live, and they just didn't go over well because they aren't like I hate saying it like this, but they aren't like pop hits. Like Eyes Closed, like the closest thing on there to it. And on top of that, you also had like there was just nothing on. I'm looking at the track listing right now, and I'm like, Boat. He played Boat. He played Eyes Closed. That's really all the two songs. If I would go back to any of them. There's just slow songs. I don't hate slow songs. I don't like dislike them. Like, music is music. It's open to interpretation how you like it or don't like it. But the very fact that he put out his most not his most recent release, which is Autumn Variations, but this one here was just so like why? Like I understand he wanted to close it out with like, but I thought it'd be like a similar to like a Bad Habits or Shape of You or Thinking Out Loud. Or when I think of those songs, I think of like an upbeat song to an
Thinking Out
extent.
Loud was essentially on here. Life Goes On was essentially the same exact song.
Well, exactly. Then that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's running out of creativity. I just think that this one was very like. I remember driving home from work before we did our stream that afternoon to talk about this. And I was like, and I listened to it again. I'm like, why am I listening to this quiet, obscure, weird, questionable thing? It was a big not a really bad album, just a disappointment because I really like him. I saw him live and he puts on a great show, whatever, right? But like the songs that go over live well are the more of the pop songs of his, and this one just didn't really deliver to me at all. Maybe no more I think about it. Maybe Eyes Closed, maybe Boat. I don't even know. Like it was just like so much, just quiet, questionable. Not my absolute favorite of the year and whatsoever. And it's just a huge letdown for me, truly, because I really like him. I think he's very talented. I mean, we talked about this record and whatnot, and I think Kyle, you talked about his Multiply album was pretty solid too. I listened to it the other day. It was great. So
Yeah, Multiply is a great album. He has great songs. He's a very talented guy.
yes,
From an objective standpoint, he's incredibly talented. This album, though, the reason this didn't crack my top five worst is because to me, there's nothing other than being incredibly boring and uninspired.
exactly.
There's nothing overtly like punch you in the face bad about these tracks.
Okay,
They're just
right.
like straight fours and fives throughout that are just, if they were in the background, you would just never know. They would just be background music in your life. There's nothing captivating on this one. Autumn Variations, though, has about half of it suffers from the same problem, but the other half is actually really solid.
I've yet to check that one out. I gotta check that one out soon. So I know it just came out too. So
I finally checked it out about a week or two ago, and actually solid. Actually impressed me. Coming from this, I would say it's nowhere near as good as his other massive hits, but
yeah,
it's pretty decent.
cool. But that is my number one as Ed Sheeran's Subtract from 2023. Yeah, I mean, bottom line, guys, this was a very dry year for us to review albums or just talk about records in general. But yeah, ultimately, it was kind of a weird year. Hopefully, 2024 some good releases coming out too. I mean, but tune in next week though when we talk about our top 5 best albums of 2023, of course. Yeah, super excited about that one as well, and we can't wait to thrive and talk about all the greatest releases that we talked about that came out this year in 2023. And there are some, but we have to figure. We'll talk about the next week. But that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. I want to thank my two incredible good friends, Kyle and Mike.
Yeah.
We're doing this as always. Quick show tonight. Quick episode. Only 35 minutes long. Yeah, I know. Sometimes we go for like hours, but that's besides the point, though. I want to thank Mike, of course, and Kyle, as always, for doing this. Kyle, Q&A podcast is up now or no?
Oh, January.
Thank you. So Q&A podcast for this guy down here, Kyle Porsche. He's ready. He's got a new some episodes coming out soon. I said it right this time. But thank you all for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us. Follow us on our social media platforms, simply at the Super Review Show. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. But for all of us here at Career Retrospectives, for one more episode in 2023, stay safe, take care.